Now, Romans 2:26 is a fascinating verse, um, very relevant to the Torah keeping discussion. Um, I'll read it. Romans 2:26. If therefore the uncircumcised keep the ordinance of the law, won't his uncircumcision be accounted as circumcision? Um, I'll read it again with a bit of input. If therefore the uncircumcised, that's the Gentiles, right, keep the ordinances of the law. Now, this can't be all of the law because circumcision is a part of the law and these people are uncircumcised. So there's no way that this phrase here is all of the Mosaic law, okay? It's the ordinances of the law, which we'll see is the moral component of the law. Circumcision and other areas of the law, like keeping the feasts, keeping the Sabbath, the dietary restrictions, so on and so forth, are what we frequently call the ceremonial aspects of the law. They are not a part of the ordinances of the law or the moral aspect of the law. Okay, so if the Gentiles keep the ordinances, the moral side of the law, right, won't his uncircumcision be accounted as circumcision? Notice that it doesn't happen, as a lot of time is presented, that eventually, he'll get circumcised because, he'll see the truth of keeping the whole law, and he'll start to keep the Sabbath and the feasts and the dietary laws and get circumcised. No, that's not what's stated. It says, won't his uncircumcision be accounted, be considered the same as circumcision, right? Won't his lack of keeping the Sabbath be accounted as keeping the Sabbath? Won't his lack of keeping the dietary rules, the clean and unclean foods, be accounted as the dietary rules? Right? You see what I'm saying? Won't his lack of keeping feasts be accounted as keeping the feasts? You see how this works? It's a very, very interesting verse. I believe it's a very powerful verse. Just a side issue, this ordinances of the law is exactly the same as this phrase in Romans 8:4, that the ordinance of the law might be fulfilled in us who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. All right, and I'm not going to turn to it, but it'd be well for you to read that in the context of, say, the first 10 verses, 12 verses of Romans chapter 8, because this is all about walking in the righteousness of the new covenant, right? And another way of describing that is that we walk in the moral law, right? Or as it puts it in this verse, the moral law is fulfilled in us, right? It's fulfilled in us who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. Right? So if we walk after the Spirit, the moral law will be fulfilled in us, not the ceremonial law, but the moral law. All right. But anyway, for what it's worth, these phrases are exactly the same in the Greek: ordinances of the law and the ordinance of the law in Romans 8:4. All right. That's exactly the same Greek words, no different whatsoever. So that's really interesting because, that ties it together very well. This is not all the law at all. Right? This is the moral law. I believe this is the moral law. And it doesn't include, of course, it doesn't include circumcision, right? That's not a moral law. That's a ceremonial law. That's a signpost that is given to point us to Jesus Christ, I believe. That's what it is. And so that's, especially when you see that tie up with Romans 8 and verse 4, that's a fascinating little verse. Hope this has been helpful. Um, Thank you. Thank you for watching.